This is not a countdown, but I will be saving my favorite single, album, and EP for the last of their respective sections, so stick around for that. This is my first proper review. I've done a couple video essays that border on review at points, but I'm thinking for reviews, I'll keep it to general monthly and yearly roundups of music. I've got a couple of video essays I'm working on concurrently, researching, writing, other miscellaneous art projects in the works as well. If any of that interests you, subscribe, like, comment below. Um, About to hit a K subs, so I really appreciate that. Um, Came out of nowhere from my perspective. Thank you, everybody. Um, with all that said, let's get into music. Great albums of January 2025. So up first, we have a really special new collection of old music. Bruz Fletcher's Drunk with Love, the almost complete recordings. I think this would be of interest to the large influx of viewers coming to my channel for my Tom Lehrer video. He's basically gay Tom Lehrer, or Schitt's Creek's David Rose if he was born in 1907, as he did lose an immense amount of wealth, twice actually. There's a bundle of loungy nightclub comedy type music from one of the shining stars of the 30s pansy craze. It's a very queer album, full of dirty double entendres. My favorite track personally has got to be She's My Most Intimate Friend. The titular friend is an interesting character, and Bruz delivers the gossip. Bruz. It's so crazy to me that his name is Bruz. Like, that's not his name, it's a nickname, but Bruz.
Bruh.
Bruz. Bruz delivers the hot goss in this really funny forked tongue kind of way.
I was with her when her brother fell in the well. Of course, I'd never admit it.
Having a century of dust on this, some of the jokes may be a bit insensitive. I'm thinking specifically of It, Peter Lily Daisy has some tasteless lines while attempting to humorously depict an intersex person. Um, I mean, on the bright side of that track, Peter Lily Daisy ultimately finds happiness in identifying as neither male nor female. The album was put together and digitally restored by the WFMU affiliated Cosmic Spy Music, a really fantastic record label of calypso classics and some more unconventional, rough around the edges music, all of it being older stuff relegated to obscurity but gaining a second life on Cosmic Spy, formerly known as Key of Z Records. Up next, we have Bad Bunny's DeBÍ Más FOToS. This will have the most lasting legacy of anything on this list by far. At the time of writing this, it has 5 songs on the top 10 of the Billboard Global 200. Bad Bunny is a Puerto Rican reggaeton sensation and political activist. The whole thing is very tender, very sentimental, and bittersweet, very catchy. This record is often saying 2 things at once. There's this side of it that is about breakups and interpersonal experiences, but oftentimes the same words are about somebody's relationship to their home and their culture being taken from them. There's a really interesting short film to accompany this album. It's on YouTube with subtitles. Like the record, this also walks this interpersonal to cultural metaphor and effectively and impactfully showcases a sweet old man played by poet Jacobo Morales, who is made to feel like an outsider in his own home in so many subtle ways in such a short amount of time. There's some heartwarming moments where he is shown solidarity from the other natives nearby. Concho, we stan. There's a song on here that translates to what happened to Hawaii. He calls Trump the corrupt one on there in the English translation, the corrupt one. It's kind of like when you translate an anime. Actually, I don't know that much about anime, but you know they have that very, very stilted translation speech. It's not inaccurate. Should I be talking about somebody's stilted speech patterns? So let's talk a little bit about something that happened to Hawaii. Hawaiian songwriter Lydia Kamakeha was living at this increased time of colonial pressure from mercenaries and missionaries. In 1876, as a party was drawing to a close, she saw a man in the distance tenderly hugging a woman goodbye. This wasn't a regular goodbye. This was au revoir. This percolated in her brain on the horse ride home, and she began humming a true 15 out of 10 masterpiece. Aloha Oi. You know it. It is the music of the establishing shot of any cartoon that takes place in Hawaii. The verse, translated into English, goes, farewell to you, the charming one who dwells in the shaded bowers, one fond embrace ere I depart, until we meet again. That's the crucial part. That rhymed, I didn't mean it to. That's not part of the lyrics. Until this time, King Kamehameha, which is spelled like the Dragon Ball Z move, for some reason, I don't know why Dragon Ball Z named it that, and then pronounced it like this.
This player tried to Kamehameha me.
So he was forced, under the threat of violence, to sign what would be dubbed the Bayonet Constitution, which effectively gave governing power of Hawaii to wealthy, landowning white people. As the Hawaiian kingdom was losing sovereignty, Lydia was dubbed Queen Liliuokalani and tried to draft a legitimate constitution, but she was placed under house arrest and Hawaii was annexed by US occupiers. When President McKinley took office, he got support slowly for Hawaii's strategic location as a place for military bases, turning one of the most beautiful places on Earth into a military base, because, of course, that's what America does. So, Aloha Oi became a very political song for the natives, a song of longing to return to your love, sung in a language that was recently made illegal. They love the land, as they should. It is a beautiful land that should be cared for and not colonized. If you're not picking up what I'm putting down yet, let me put it this way. An artist and respected member of their community writing a song about a reluctant goodbye between lovers that represents the growing separation of a people from their homeland that is being colonized. That sentence could be said of Bad Bunny or Queen Liliuokalani. Sad but relevant comparison. Moving from a language that I can barely understand if they sing slowly and use simple words like in boleros, to one I've never even heard of until this album came out. Héritage by Songhoy Blues is a desert blues album sung in Songhoy. I don't know what many of these songs are about, but some of them are about the exaltation of art and protection of nature, like Isa, which apparently means river. Makes me think of the Bad Bunny line, Quien quitarme el rio? They want to take my river. These themes do come across in the sound. Before I read anything, I was picturing lyrics about a celebration of life and nature, which is pretty close to art and rivers. The percussion on this record is great, and the whole thing is played on traditional Malian instruments like the soku, which is basically a one-stringed fiddle. Returning to the Anglophone world, we have Into a Pretty Room by Lots of Hands. A very twinkly Twilight Hours patchwork of folktronica. Tracks like Barnyard give me a bit of a vibe like the books, but perhaps a little fuzzier and floatier around the edges. And look, there's a horsey. Big points for that, obviously. There's 3 other releases on this list with horses on the cover. 2 different artists, both named Horse Girl, dropped this month as well, which is like, what's with all the horsies? Must be something in the water. Up next, we have Olympia act Pigeon Pit with Crazy Arms. I would generally think of them as a folk punk act, but they've been stepping into a more alt-country direction as of late, with some fantastic fiddle and pedal steel playing on tracks like Josephine County Blues and Tide Pools. Lyrically, reminds me a lot of Springsteen or Paul Barabeau. Very me and you on the open road, baby. Let's ditch this one horsey town and get the heck out of here. Their whole back catalog is really great. Treehouse might be a favorite, but it's close. I don't even know. Really, all the albums, nothing misses. Um, there's this exaltation of art and community. There's this folksy charm. There's a looming shadow of imminent fascism, and cute little horsies on the album cover. A lot of recurring themes on this list. And my personal favorite album so far this year, uh, there's going to be a lot of discussion of racism in this bit, but it is essential context, so just skip ahead to the next section if you want. Another Mississippi Sunday Morning by Parchman Prison Prayer, a folk and gospel record by prisoners of Mississippi State Penitentiary. The former involuntary residency of blues greats like Booka White and R.L. Burnside, this place has a storied musical history. Booka White's Parchman Farm Blues became a blues and rock standard. In 1941, the Lomax family came to Parchman Farm to record, and they got some really interesting recordings of work songs in the field. John Lomax, whose parents owned slaves, fetishized black people in a rather condescending way. He felt that they had the most primitive and therefore best music. Um, he figured that prisons would be the place to find the most primitive music because black song tradition would be the least affected by outside influence, since those in the clink clank listened to the radio. He also figured, perhaps reasonably, that it was the closest recording equipment can get to the sound of field haulers from people in slavery. There was actually an 8-year overlap in the existence of recording equipment and the date honored as the end of slavery, the first Juneteenth. Slavery ended really recently, if it can be said to have ended at all, which in many ways it can't. Ta-Nehisi Coates described Parchman as the gulag of Mississippi, and David Oshinke described it as the closest thing to slavery that survived the Civil War. Makes sense, unfortunately, as much of the penal system is based around trying to continue slavery in a whitewashed form, with flimsy excuses for imprisoning black people and then saying, well, they aren't slaves because they did something to deserve it, or were accused of something that in their minds would make them deserve it. At this point in time, the modern day, the deplorable rat-infested conditions are well documented by contraband cell phones. I'm not going to show it. You could find many documentaries on Parchman here on YouTube. Now that the context is set, let's get to this record. It covers so much: joy, sorrow, gratitude, growth, redemption, systemic racism, above all, hope in the most dire of situations. Topical. I'm not saying it makes sense to have hope, but I am saying that it is the best option in these trying times. It's hard to function without hope in something. And that can mean many things. Fill in your personal blank, please. Leave some hopium in the comments. It is desperately needed. This record may not be everyone's cup of tea for the reason that it can be a little preachy in that there is literal preaching on this record. It is primarily a gospel record. It's very, very tonally, however. Lots of vibes are touched on. It flies by, in my opinion. At one point, there was even some rapping over beatboxing. MC Hammer.
Holy Spirit dancing like MC Hammer. Too legit.
The rap track MC Hammer is the most fun part of the record for sure. You can listen to it in a kind of lighthearted, silly way, but the song is also really impactful if you sit and listen intently. Someone who recognizes their faults and longs to grow, someone who misses and loves their family, and a couple of fun rap puns. Parts of this record, like Po Child, Parchman Prison Blues, and Take Me to the King, hit a more low and even eerie tone. Another reason that this album came to me in a time where I particularly am interested in it is because the two most recent History of Rock and 500 Songs episodes cover Hugh Ledbetter and the Lomaxes. I'm also slowly working my way through Alan Lomax, the man who recorded the world. Although there are some divergences in the stories between these two sources, I tend to take the 500 Songs podcast where they do differ. Like, for example, the book claims Ledbetter mistakenly believed Allen was responsible for his freedom, but the podcast claims Ledbetter was simply appeasing a man who had power over him. Also, I will link a list of prison-related charities and organizations in the description. If anybody has any good ones or information on which one to avoid, drop it in the comments. Great singles. Richard Dawkins. Jesus. No, not him. Richard Dawson. Richard Dawson has some good songs this month. Looking forward to the album. Nice, flowing, progressive folk as always. Dawson doesn't disappoint. You should check it out. Moving on, we have The Wiggles and Dasha with Wiggle Up, Giddy Up. Yes, that's right, folks. The Wiggles are back with the new single featuring pop country sensation Dasha, delivering a scathing critique of U.S. intervention in the Middle East. With the threatening boot-stomping beat, they cry, "Wiggle up, boots on the ground." Wiggle up, of course, conjuring images of the snake-like movement of direct military intervention. Let me just pull up Wigglepedia for a second. Oh, okay. So go round and round refers to the cyclical nature of political violence and power vacuums. Their other singer, Dorothy Doll, is an interesting look at the substitution of commodities for real human affection.
Real human affection.
Body pillows, subscription model AI girlfriends. There's an element of the dehumanizing effect of a product that appears to have its own feelings, but doesn't. That can talk back, but can't backtalk. Similar thematically to classics like Paper Doll by the Mills Brothers, or Wind Up Doll from that Kenneth Anger movie. Up next, Sierra Ferrell came out with a new studio version of The Garden that's better than the Hunger Games version, but not as good as her live performances. Still fantastic if you like bluegrass. And Besties for last, we have the Black Country New Road single, Besties. With a phenomenal new singer, Georgia Ellery, Black Country is killing it. It reminds me of late Beatles era Paul McCartney in some way that I find hard to place. I love the feel of this song. So much happens in a short time, and the lyrics are stellar. There is some unrequited sapphic love going on, and I think this theme will be coming up elsewhere on the album based on the track listing. Mary, Salem Sisters. I think this album's going to be pretty gay. One of the tracks that will be coming out is called Socks, which ties to an interesting line on Besties. I feel like there's two options there. They're both gay. The colors, rainbow colors, run out of her and are visible. The friend knows how she feels and tries to ignore it. Or socks are white. When colors run, they typically turn pink, like a pink triangle. Into the great EPs of January. Becky Buller's Reach. It's bluegrass. Check it out. It's good. And fave EP for last, we have an incredible amount of overwhelming information by Buffalo band Ismatic Guru. It's psychedelic. It's punk. Believe it, friends. I cannot stop listening to this thing. The songs are short, fun, clean, angular. Reminds me a lot of Paint It Pink, which is quite possibly my favorite punk record of all time. But cleaner and thinner sounds. Listen to it. It's so short, you may just have to play their entire discography immediately after. It's that good. All right, so that's everything I wanted to cover, but I want to know, what have you listened to this month? What have I missed? What are you looking forward to in the upcoming year? If these bands were cartoons, which would they be? I feel like Pigeon Pit would be Craig of the Creek, but grown-ups. Literally, I'm talking vibes. Like, you have to know what I mean. Like, Neutral Milk Hotel is Over the Garden Wall.
I hope you're not thinking of me as part of we. Sure, we'll be a couple. A couple of what?
A couple of besties.
Giddy up down to Wiggletown. It's a catchy song.